Hello, viewers. This is Bhatia, and I welcome you all to yet another exciting episode of ZLF Talks, the latest blockchain web-based show telling you about the latest happening in the blockchain world with the help of our global blockchain leaders. Today, we have with us an award-winning author, futurist, and a technology transformation leader, a social innovator who's working to shift to a human-centered digital economy backed by her rich and valuable experience across 30 plus years. Viewers, help me welcome Dr. Jane Thomason joining us live from Brisbane, Australia. So, firstly, hello, Dr. Jane. Welcome to our show, and it's incredible to have you amongst us today.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be joining you, and I look forward to the day that I'll actually be with you in person in Mumbai.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Jane, firstly, in interest of our viewers, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
I'd be happy to do that. I've spent most of my life working in emerging economies, a lot of it in healthcare, and so I understand some of the hardships and difficulties that exist in countries like India. And in around 2016, I started to learn about blockchain technology initially, and then the other frontier technologies. And I realized, especially with mobile penetration, that we're at a time now when real transformation is possible. So since 2016, I've really moved my focus to digital transformation, but particularly in emerging economies.
Absolutely. Also, Dr. Jane, I'm really curious on this, that what is it that drew your interest towards blockchain?
It's a funny story, really. In about 2010, my son, he said, "Mum, there's this new digital currency called Bitcoin. You should buy some." And of course, it was worth about 10 cents at that time. And I didn't buy one. And then in 2016, when I think Bitcoin was probably around $3,000, he came back and said, "Hey, Mum, did you buy some of that Bitcoin?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, it's $3,000. And then he said, "Now listen to me, Mum. I'm telling you that Bitcoin is built on blockchain, and that's going to change everything. And this time you have to listen to me, and you have to learn about blockchain." So that's how I got started.
That's very interesting to know when the younger generation sort of guiding you towards what's happening latest. Also, I'm really curious, Dr. Jane, is what insights can the readers expect from your book, which you have, is the blockchain technology for global social change? Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, what we tried to do with that book is to try and put blockchain and its applications into plain and simple language that people could understand. Because what I find is when people talk about blockchain, they get so confused and everyone goes into all of the technical details about how it works, and then they fail to understand how it can really help change things, whether it's around digital identity or whether it's around agricultural supply chains or whether it's about payments and remittances or whether it's around voting. There's so many applications that blockchain can be used in, which really are going to help transform citizens' lives. And in fact, I've been several times to India working with some blockchain companies on these kinds of projects, which actually are improving the way people live, how they can connect with the economy.
Absolutely, that's great to know. And I think, there is this thing about what exactly is blockchain, and I keep coming across a lot of my peers asking me that, and I'm sure this book would help them to understand the same. Also, Dr. Jane, what social changes do you foresee in people post-COVID? Could you address that as well?
Well, I think the big opportunity of COVID, and it's sort of like there's the tragedy, but there's the opportunity that comes out of that. The big opportunity is that because COVID forced us so quickly to go digital, suddenly people realized they can work from home, they can connect with colleagues around the world, they can have telehealth conversations, they can do instant transfers with money. And I think if we hadn't had this experience, it would have taken maybe 5 to 10 years to get people to that point of being willing to use digital technologies. So what we've seen is a lot of uptake of digital technologies during the pandemic. And for me, that means readiness for really thinking about how to leverage that after the pandemic.
Absolutely. Dr. Jane, also I want to understand, since you have such a rich experience now, what do you feel would be the impact of blockchain if we have to see about the global economy in the next 5 years? Could you also tell us about that?
So I'm going to answer that a little bit indirectly, because I started my journey learning about blockchain, but then I realized that it's never going to be blockchain on its own. It'll be blockchain with IoT, or blockchain with AI, or blockchain with 3D printing, or a combination of the above. So I kind of changed my narrative to be around how frontier technologies solve problems. And sometimes it will use blockchain and sometimes it won't need a blockchain. And so I think it's more, how can we live in this new digital world and use those technologies to make people's lives better?
I think that's really interesting because blockchain does go with other fields, and I totally agree with that. Also, I wanted to understand, and this is going to be interesting for the viewers, Dr. Jane, what are your favorite blockchain projects? Could you tell us about that as well?
Well, my favorite blockchain project, but this is because I've been working with this wonderful software developer called Ish Goyal from Delhi since 2017 on something which is around governance on a blockchain. And that's just because we've been working on it a long time. I'm terribly fond of him and I think it's a great project. But so that's a personal aside. But what I'm interested in is the ones that are now able to really help people. So let me use an example of what we've seen happen in the pandemic, is the rapid uptake of mobile transfers in terms of mobile money or cryptocurrencies, and things that have happened during the pandemic. And I don't know if this has happened in India, but I'll give you this example from the Philippines. So small-scale micro-entrepreneurs in the Philippines who make money from, for example, selling Netflix or Spotify cards in the villages couldn't get any foreign exchange to buy the cards because during the lockdown, all of the cash shops were also shut. So they turned to use cryptocurrencies to be able to buy their Spotify and Netflix cards so they could continue to make money during the pandemic. So we have a lot of examples where really, really small people are benefiting from that immediate access to payments, and particularly foreign exchange payments that crypto can give. So they're the things that excite me, the things that help poor people have a better life, do things better, get connected with the economy.
That's great for you to bring in, because blockchain bringing in about for the social causes across the world. It's interesting to know how different projects are coming across. Also, I wanted to understand from you, Dr. Jane, what would you prefer? Would you prefer global centralized banks or a peer-to-peer transaction system? What's your take on that?
Look, I think it's never going to be one or the other. What we're seeing already is that the banks, after being not at all open to decentralized systems, are looking at aspects of blockchain. So, for example, with bonds and bond trading and settlements, they realize that you get higher levels of efficiency and transparency and speed, and you cut out middlemen by using blockchain. So they're using blockchain in certain aspects of their financial operations. So I think we're going to see that. I think we're never going to see a totally distributed world where there is no centralized system. I just think that's unrealistic. But I think what we're going to see is a mix, and that people are going to take the best aspects of decentralization and weave them into their business models.
Absolutely. Also, Dr. Jain, I wanted to understand from you is what changes the new business needs to implement to enable a blockchain mass adoption, because that's what everyone's really trying to do. What's your take there?
Okay, so I think I need to explain that this concept of mass adoption is really around public blockchains, because that's what makes public blockchains succeed. So you need to have as many people as possible, both using your blockchain and developers building on the blockchain. This doesn't apply so much to private and federated blockchains, which frankly are going to be used much more for business and government organizations and so forth, because it's going to be very unlikely that huge corporations and governments will allow a totally free and public blockchain and interact on that, because they do want to control some aspect of what goes on in their ecosystem. So I think if you just talk about cryptocurrencies becoming widespread, I think we're seeing that increasingly. I know that it's very controversial in India. And what I've seen since 2016 is increasingly people are getting more regulated. The exchanges are getting more regulated. They're trying to behave in ways that mitigate the risks that central banks see of cryptocurrency. So I think it's not quite cryptos going mainstream, but I think increasingly the ones that are succeeding are trying to be properly regulated, do proper KYC and AML, and they're the ones that will succeed in my view.
Absolutely. Also, Dr. Jain, I want to understand is, we both are women, both of us are coming from different genres and different achievements in life. Now, do you think blockchain can help women empowerment in any way? Now, this is a different question which I'm asking, but I'm really curious to know on that.
Well, look, I think it can. So I want to sort of distinguish between anyone can get involved in blockchain. So women can be involved in blockchain, and I've been very active with the Women in Blockchain movement around the world. It's not a men's domain. It's technology. If women are interested, they can get involved, and they should get involved. I think, however, there are some things, and I've written about it at different times, where things like slavery in supply chains, which most predominantly involves women and children, can be really assisted by blockchain in a couple of ways. One is by giving people identities, because the people who get trafficked and the people who are drawn into slavery are usually people who don't have identities. So that's an absolutely critical issue. And it's harder to traffic people who have an identity. I think the other side of it is that there's a number of aspects where women might be discriminated against. And let's take the example of property rights. And so one of the things, there's a number of projects going on, including in India, using blockchain for land registry and for, in an immutable way, recording the ownership of property, which means then if there's a death and the woman in fact is the entitled owner of the property, then that is preserved on a blockchain and no one can tamper with it. So there's actually probably a dozen examples, but I just wanted to give you that one as an example.
Absolutely. And towards the end, while we are going towards the end of our conversation, with your rich experience of 30 plus years, Dr. Jain, what would be your advice you'd like to give to our audience today?
Look, the advice that I want to give you, and it's because 2020 is an unprecedented year, and everyone's found it really tough, and everyone's found it hard to keep their spirits up. And I think that we all have to really dig deep during this year and have optimism, and have faith in the human spirit, and know that we will pass through this period and we'll come out the other end. And we need to support each other. And all of us need to get up in the morning and not let those negative feelings take hold and go, I am going to appreciate whatever I can find in my day, and I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm going to help other people keep their spirits up. We are enduring at the moment, but we will come through and we'll be able to create a better world when this is all over.
Absolutely. And Dr. Jain, with that, I'd really like to thank you first up for joining us on ZLF Talks. Also, if we could get your input as to how do you feel such a platform will help to garner more awareness about blockchain industry. What's your take on that, being a part of ZLF Talks today?
I just think education is key, and plain talking is key, because with technology, everyone gets confused. They don't understand what it is. They don't know what a 3D printer is. They don't know what a distributed ledger is. And I think if we talk about, like you asked me, how can it help women? Here's how it can help women. If we start talking about real problems that people have and how technology applied can actually help them solve those problems, then we'll be a long way ahead. So we have to tell the story in an understandable way for the general population.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Dr. Jane, for joining us. And I'm sure the viewers today are going to value whatever you have brought in on our episodes of ZLF Talks. Once again, thank you for joining us. And it was incredible having you today.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you very much. And I wish everyone that they just get through 2020 and look out the other end.
Absolutely. So viewers, this is me, Bhavana Bhatia, presenting to you another spectacular episode of ZLF Talks. We'll see you soon with another one. Thank you once again.